Hi, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. The quote-unquote big game was yesterday. We'll discuss it, and maybe some takeaways about what the Commanders can learn from it. We'll talk about uniforms today, the hot topic for everybody in the DMV. Nobody better to do that than our good buddy Mike Callow. Mike, thank you for hopping on with us today. It has been too long.
For sure. Always happy to join you guys. Happy to be back.
Full disclosure, George, Mike Callow is one of the original Big Douglas Show guests when I was still doing audio only on Anchor Stream. So we're always glad to have some of the originals.
OG for sure. I love it.
First season. Yeah, it's great. It was yesterday, fellas. I got to tell you, I only watched the first half after the Cooper DeJean interception touchdown. It looked like there was no way. Chiefs aren't built to come back like that. I guess I've seen run around. Maybe Patrick got concussed in the first quarter. I don't know about that, but he didn't look like himself through most of the game. And that Philadelphia defense was just incredible yesterday. Draft Georgia players. I think that is what we learned from yesterday. George, what any big thoughts coming out of the game from yesterday?
It was just interesting because I know going up into the game, Doug, we talked about the best player in the world versus the best overall team, right? So Patrick Mahomes, clearly very talented quarterback. We've never seen him that vulnerable before. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. Going into the game, it was, whether he is the GOAT or Tom Brady's the GOAT. I'm always Tom Brady was the GOAT. Until you get more championships, and more than 7 championships, Tom Brady, I'm going to defer to him. But Patrick Mahomes seemed flustered yesterday. Obviously, the Eagles' defensive line was causing disruptions, was causing pressures. But the biggest takeaway for me is that they didn't even blitz. It was a 4-man front. They were just being creative. They were outmanning the person in front of them. They were just causing disruption. And for the first time in my career, my observations of watching Patrick Mahomes, he started seeing ghosts. He started being flustered in the pocket. He started to move around, started to run into pressure, and we've never seen that before. So I'm kind of curious if that's going to be something that's going to be moving forward. Is he going to kind of shake those yips, or is this a new Patrick Mahomes, or what's going to happen from here? Very interesting takeaway. And I hate to say it, but kudos to the Eagles, man. I mean, they just dominated that game. It was boring. I was like, this is not fun. I wanted it to be exciting. And about midway through the game, I just kind of accepted defeat. And I was like, you know what? Good for them. That's where I was at.
Not one time, George. They didn't blitz him one time. I think I saw the number today. That's the 6th time in history where a quarterback didn't see one blitz. All 6 times said quarterback lost. So that's how that is. And it just shows that D-line is loaded. They came in waves. The ends, they've got 3 guys that start for any team in the league. They've got 3 defensive tackles that start for any defense in the league. It'll be interesting to see how much of that defense they can keep together next year. Mike, it's easy to say that Jalen Hurts has more talent than any quarterback around him in the league. The kid was dealing yesterday.
No, I think the chatter, especially the conclusion that I had come up with on my show, because I think a lot of times we like to pick somebody, and then by the end of those 2 weeks, we flip-flop because we've just talked about the angles so much. I could not get off of the same argument that we were having during the NFC Championship game. 1 through 52, they're the best team in the league. We would take Jaden over Jalen any day of the week, though. Same exact thing with the Chiefs. They 1 through 52, you're taking the Eagles, but you would take Mahomes over Hurts. Guess what? That was the difference maker. And you know what? Credit to the Eagles, because you do not have to scheme up or outshine or do anything fancy when your offensive and defensive lines are just outright dominant. It was like bittersweet to see them win hog style, essentially. Like, that offensive line protected him all day long, gave him just enough time. The Eagles had no pressure. And then on the flip side, you're like, I think, George, you said seeing ghosts. I've never seen Mahomes that panicky. That was bad. By the second half, he was running into the pressure. I think Brady said that at one point. They had him rattled, and that's honestly one of the most impressive things I've ever seen with them. So kudos to them all across the board, including Hurts, who we said for 2 weeks, if they got to rely on that guy, good luck. Well, all he did was win Super Bowl MVP. So
he really was fantastic. Mike, George and I were talking before we started the show about those 2 interior tackles for the Eagles and how that's kind of what we thought we were getting with John Allen and Deron Payne. It feels like that experiment will be ending soon. I'm not sure that they can keep Allen at said cost. And as you know, it looks like it's probably too expensive to move on from Payne. The draft is loaded with D-line, tackle, and edge. I think if we learned anything from the Eagles, that you cannot have too many premier defensive linemen.
No, 100%. I think, this is going to be simple economics too. Like, not to knock John. I think we all of us who have stuck with this team for the bad times, like, that's one of those guys that's been here. He was originally a Redskin, right? He's been here long enough. But to me, this is going to be a unfortunate cut and paste, cut and dry thing for Adam Peters to go, I can draft a D tackle. John, I thought actually was all right during the playoffs. Like, actually was a little bit more impactful than I thought he would be, but he hasn't been for a while that impact guy that we've all really wanted him to, like, dominate games, make these big game-changing plays. I think we actually saw it a little more from Payne over the last few years, that he would make those big plays. We haven't seen it from him, this past season. So I think, unfortunately, this is going to get to economics where he's going to go, I'd rather draft a D tackle, get his replacement, and then go spend that money elsewhere. I think that's where we're kind of leaning here, because you got 4 years of Jaden on a rookie contract. You got to finagle some things here over the next 4 years. And I think it's just economics. I think that's going to get broken up here.
If all money was, real quick, Georgia, if all the money was the same, do you think they'd prefer Allen over Payne?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's just my personal. I don't have any inside info though, but Payne, it's always unfortunate when the guy balls out for his contract year and then after he's just basic. You know what I mean? Like, not to knock him, not saying he's not trying hard, but like, he had some moments in that contract year where we're like, whoa, we've been waiting for this guy. Like, I point to that one drive. Remember they were playing the Broncos and he single-handedly ended a drive from them. Like, I don't need that every time, but like, every now and again, that'd be great, like, and they're just not getting a pass rush with the defensive line. So I think they would prefer Allen, because at least Allen, we see him try really, really hard. And we also see Allen, bring up that leadership role too, right? Like, we know that he's a leader. He does the pregame huddle, all that stuff. So I think they'd prefer Allen, but at the end of the day, I don't think either one's making a huge impact at the moment.
So, Mike, we have the unfortunate circumstance of the Eagles being in our division, but also Super Bowl champs. There's a common narrative that we should be building our team to counteract and to beat the Eagles. Do you believe in that philosophy, and what does that look like in your opinion?
I mean, anyone that's saying that, like, what would you like to counteract? They have an advantage at every single position except quarterback, right?
That's
like
true.
Quarterback, linebackers, DNs, D-line, safeties. Then you were going offense, wide receiver, running back, offensive line. Like, how do you want to do that? Like, you have to have 5, 6, 7 years of great drafts and hitting and continually hitting on this. So this is not going to be easy. You actually, like, the only way I was kind of trying to think of this last night, because I knew I wanted to talk about it today on my show, is like, you need the Eagles to screw up a decision here soon, or else like they're just going to keep building this. And Roseman, he's on fire as a GM right now. Everything he does works. Like, they lost Jason Kelsey last year, and their offensive line got better. Every single lineman that started for them this year in the original starting 5, all of them got at least one All-Pro vote. Like, that's crazy when you think about it in today's day and age. Like, so they're continually making these good decisions. What I ended up on the conclusion was on my show today was that maybe you get a little 49ers here, where they draft so many good players that you just get this constant drama from them, right? Like last year, it was Ayuk. It was Debo before. It was Trent Williams this last year. They have to go sign Purdy. Like, that's the only thing. And that's the craziest first world problem in the NFL, maybe of all time. So in terms of us having to counteract that, I think it's honestly Adam Peters, nailing these drafts. He nailed his first draft fantastically, right? Like, he gets Jaden, he gets Mikey Sanders still. Remains to be seen with some of the other guys like Ben Sinnott and Johnny Newton, but we saw some flashes from those guys. Gets Coleman, right? Like, really good. But now at the same time, he has to balance this whole act of how far all in does he go here? Like, does he trade for Myles Garrett and give up 4 premium picks instead of building his roster out? It's a tall task.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? Like, should we fast track it, or should we go with the draft, or what are your thoughts?
With Garrett, I think you got to see what the asking price is, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to be in these talks. What scares me the most is here were the Eagles in the Super Bowl all week long, and they're one of the names that is being thrown out there to get him. I'm like, guys, they haven't even played the Super Bowl yet, and they can get him, and they would be fine. Like it's not up against the cap, or they don't have the draft capital. That's what scares me. And I think if you're Peters, you have to weigh that. What'll it cost for us to get him so they don't get him? Same thing, I think, because we're hearing the Lions too, right? Like, here's two opponents that you're going to have to go through if you want to go and play the Super Bowl next year. I think you got to weigh that. I'm of the belief you stand pat if it gets to be too expensive, but at the same time, if he keeps nailing his mid-round picks, and let's be honest here, he did a great job in free agency too. I didn't even mention that. So if you can get some stop-gap guys here and you feel comfortable with that, I'm all right with it. But that's a rock and a hard place. Definition of that in the NFL world at this point.
Absolutely.
The conversation, Mike, seems to be, do you put offensive line and more weapons around Jaden so that you can exploit that side of the ball? And then the other side is, right, I mean, this is an offense that went toe-to-toe with the premier offenses in the league already. The problem was the defense gave up 55 points in games where it mattered. So do you spend this offseason making sure that you improve the defense? I mean, I think about even things just like adding another corner so that you can, I mean, people are talking about, is Cooper DeJean better than Mikey Sanders? Well, Cooper's playing where they want Mikey to be at, right? Like they asked him to do something extraordinary this year. So is it more important to put money into this defense where they were terrible? And I am the belief, at least, that part of the beauty of Jaden Daniels is he can elevate guys that are mid, as they say. I'm curious where you stand on where you'd put your chips in this year.
I think you spend your premium slots, we'll call them, on defense. That's your top free agents, your first round pick. Obviously, it's the end of this first round. You take the best player available. I don't think we overcomplicate that, but I think if there's, a choice there, you spend your top money on defense. I mean, look how good this offense was with who was at wide receiver 2. It was a whole group of guys as wide receiver 2. And I'm not here to knock, everyone like that, but you're right, Doug. Like we found out real fast, oh, this guy can elevate everybody around him. And so I'm of the kind of the ilk of use your top slots on defense, free agency, draft, whatever, but get Jaden another playmaker. And if that's a running back, great. If that's a tight end, great. If that's a wide receiver, great. You just need, I think, 1 to 2 pieces and one big piece on offense to really kind of blow this offense open, because he's going to take advantage. Like the fact that Terry McLaurin had the season that he did,
amazing,
being the only like legit, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to disparage everyone, but like being the only legit number 1 on the team was kind of unreal. And like it did open some things up. On the other side, we saw De'Ami Brown have these big moments and really open up in the playoffs, right? Zacchaeus made some clutch grabs down the stretch. Noah Brown, of course, even not even including the Hail Mary, was really good right off the bat with this offense. I think they can kind of go bargain bin shopping on the wide receiver market, kind of like the Chiefs. Like, I don't know if you saw the Chiefs free agents. They're like their whole wide receiver core, not named Xavier Worthy, are free agents. Yeah. I'll happily take Hopkins over here, or even Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, there's a couple of names there that I'm going, if they can play in the Chiefs offense, they can definitely play in this offense. So I think top slots go to defense, and the offense, you can kind of just figure it out because you saw what the track record was already this year.
We're in a season where there's rumors and every free agent is being tied to Washington. Is there any particular player that kind of suits your interest right now? We're hearing Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Pitts even. Are those intriguing to you by any chance?
Tight end, I'm good with standing pat at. I hope they bring Zach Ertz back. I think that's fine. I'm still kind of, I want to see what Ben Sinnott is made of. Like, I would have loved to see a little more of him. Like, I thought with just the lack of weapons on offense, we would have gotten a better look at him. I'm not ready to call it on him. He was a high pick, but I think this tight end room I'm comfortable with. Wide receiver wise, I'll kind of go back to what I said. Like, off the scrap heap, I'm okay with this. I am so wary on trading and paying for a guy. And so if you look at a guy like Higgins, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they let him walk, great. Like, take a shot at that guy. I'm all right with that. But if they need to trade for him, I'm kind of out on it. Debo is really interesting. I don't know if you saw the stat line if you trade for him this year. The Niners have $33 million of dead cap if they trade him. You then get him at $17 million on 1-year deal. So If you think like the asking price is going to be okay there, or you get to like extend him out before you trade him, I think that's an interesting one. My problem with Debo is he's always on the injury report. So like that's one where I'd almost rather go, who can we get that's a number 2 that's available for a lot? Or I've even looked at it like, is a guy like DK Metcalf going to go on the market? He's got 1 year left. He's got that same deal that Terry got a couple years ago, right? Does Garrett Wilson want out of New York? Devontae Adams is probably going to get cut. Like, I want one of those guys, but I'm not willing to give up a bunch of assets. I'd rather trade it in like a Myles Garrett type trade, get a top 5 defensive player. But those are the names that I'm looking at here. Devontae probably shouldn't cost you anything. His cap it's like $40 million. They're gonna cut him. There's no way that the Jets keep him. Or you go after a younger guy like a Garrett Wilson. I just don't know what that guy's gonna garner.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a name, and I think we'll remember it later. Amari Cooper, I think, is a good fit for Washington, and I could see money-wise that kind of making sense, a 2-year deal with an option kind of team up with whatever the next deal, whatever extension kind of it is that you give to Terry McLaurin. The two of them may fit well. Remember, Deebo Samuel also a 60-yard per game career guy, and apparently wants to be a primary wide receiver and not a gadget guy anymore. And I'll never understand these guys that don't want to do what it is that makes them great. And we've had those before. Mike, we want to get into some uniform stuff while you're here. Let's start with the easy stuff. The name obviously doesn't come back. The logo is not coming back either. Can the logo come back in some sort of 1-year alumni game situation?
That's a great question. I get the sense they don't want to bring it back. I don't blame them either. I think there was a point in time there where it was plausible to get the logo back, especially like you look at the landscape of sports. Like they did not have the Cleveland Indians Indian logo. That is inherently racist with redskin and buck teeth and all that stuff. And you also had, the Native American tribes come out and say that they liked that logo. And it was, illustrated by, the Blackfeet tribe and all that. But I don't think this ownership group is interested in this conversation anymore. And I think like we're living in a world right now where they're going, maybe there was a time where that could come back, but I'm going with a hard no here. I think, the fact that Josh Harris really took last week to kind of just shut the door on it. I don't think the logo comes back. Could we get a feather situation like we did last summer? Maybe I'll put a % chance on that. But at the same time, I think you're opening up Pandora's box here with any of that old stuff. And I don't see this ownership group going that route at this point.
It's funny. We actually had Kevin Sheehan on our show a couple of weeks ago. He said the same thing. He said bringing back a logo, even though it's a great idea, might infuriate fans more. So why can we do it twice a year as opposed to 17 games a year? It kind of opens up Pandora's box, as you guys alluded to.
So then
absolutely. And I don't blame them for that. Good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we've heard about, and he mentioned again, I guess, at the honors celebration about tweaks coming back. I think Grant Paulson said he had heard people talking about Joe Gibbs era 1.0, and it has led to speculation on what that may look like. I have heard a lot of people say they want the white logo back in particular, and I don't know if that's because people like the burgundy more than they do the white. Of note, the white jerseys are the only ones with black on them. It is my understanding that they need that black to keep the black jerseys. Is that true?
That's a new one that I hadn't heard of.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, that's a weird rule if that's the case, if I'm being honest there. An alternate jersey is an alternate jersey. Like I don't have an example off the top of my head that somebody has to have that color. I'll say this, though, about the white jersey in general. That thing is kind of crazy. Like, I know they wore it all in the playoffs this year, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, there is no yellow. There's only very minimal yellow on it. It's like, it doesn't match the burgundy jersey either. Like, it's a different, like, number texture. It says Washington. It doesn't say Commanders on it. I was there on 2/2/22, and it was my first thought was like, that thing's got to go. Like,
yeah,
it didn't make sense. The numbers are different. So I don't know if that's the case, but I gotta think even the ownership group is going to Nike or the league going, come on, guys. Like, what are you doing here that we need to have that black? So that's what I've never actually heard of. And if that is the case, I'd be shocked because I think the battle blacks actually work, like as an alternate jersey that is new and you want a fresh look. I think that sticks around. And honestly, you know what helps? When Jaden has iconic moments wearing it, right?
Absolutely.
Like that was every game he played in that battle black jersey was fantastic. So I think the league would probably let that one slide. To answer that question, I think they'd let it slide, honestly.
So in Doug's defense, you're right, Doug. That's what I heard as well. Jason Wright alluded to the white, the font around the numbers had to remain to get the black jerseys, but maybe it's a white lie. Maybe it's I don't know. He wanted to kind of cover up the whole debacle potentially. I have no idea. We'll see there. I'm curious. Do you have a potential time frame, Mike? Like, do you think when this could potentially happen? Could it happen as early as a couple months going into this season upcoming? Also, I've heard of talks that the league is allowing 3 alternate helmets for 2025. Do you know anything about Washington potentially appealing or requesting an option for that?
I don't know about the helmet rule. I had seen some rumors about that last year, so I'm not surprised that that's going to be the case. I knew once they opened up the alternate helmets again, that we were going to get full college football here. Let's be honest here. Like if college football, 100%. Watching what Oregon does every single year, the NFL is like, give us some of that money. So I'm not surprised that is the case. In terms of the timeline of the uniform, look, I just know what I know. And here's this. When 2222 happened, my first kind of like radar siren went up. They only had 3 jerseys. And if you look at some of the teams that have revamped since then, it has been your primary home, your primary away, an alternate, and a throwback. So like the Seahawks, for example, like they haven't done a rebrand, but those are their 4 jerseys, right? And you throw in, the alternate color, whatever it's the lime or whatever it is. The one that really made me believe that this was going to happen fast was go to the Broncos rebrand last year. They went white, they went blue, they went orange, and then they also had a throwback ready to go off of, a whole entire, rebrand or whatever. Right away, I said, I don't know why this team doesn't have their throwback. I get it. They want to distance themselves from the old branding here for a little bit, but we're all in agreement. We love the old look. No matter what side of the name you are on, I think we all can agree that look is iconic. I'm cool watching Jaden in the new uniforms, but I know I'd buy a throwback jersey the second they go on sale.
Right here. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So I really thought this was going to get off the ground fast. And I think people need to realize this, like, do not throw away that they launched those gold pants right before the season started last year. Like, I think people took that for granted a little bit of like, oh, gold pants, whatever. One, they looked really good in that uniform, everything really aside. Nice. Two, they also said it unannounced and tweaked the uniform, but no one talked about it in that sense, which I found just really fascinating of guys, they've already tweaked the uniform. More could be on the way. That's where I really was it was really funny how that conversation didn't really happen. Everyone was like, oh, cool, gold pants are back. And I was kind of big braining it of guys, something else is going to happen here if they're already bringing those back. So I think it could happen as soon as this offseason. Do they maybe take a step back because it's honestly becoming a huge story? I could see it, but I also know this group, they paid $6 billion for this franchise, and they need to make up a lot of money. And I know that jersey, whether it's a cookie cutter version of it or a modified version of it, I know they'll sell a bunch of them because last time I checked, Jaden Daniels was the #1 jersey seller in the entire league. So I really could see it happening here. If I had to pick a time for it, I don't know. You want those in the hands of your fans before the season. So are we talking pre-training camp? Are you talking a draft night thing? That could be something that they hype up around the draft. I think you pick your poison. It could happen at any time, but I do think they're getting some kind of alternate that is some kind of homage to the past before next season starts.
I was listening, watching you and Bram. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think you had mentioned that one of the ways you get around doing a jersey ad is if Nike already has it in its vault or collection, let's say, so that adding, say, if they've still got in the computers the Washington football team jerseys, which are essentially some version of the Gibbs era, that it would take less time to make that happen. Did I hear you right when you said that?
I think I might have said that at some point, but here's the thing. They never stopped selling Washington football team jerseys. Go on Fanatics right now. You can still buy them. Like, those are still being printed up. That is not hard for them to do. I've just not heard that it's going to be a cookie cutter jersey. Like, I think Josh Harris, I don't know if he meant to say it in the way that he did on that red carpet interview where he said, we're going back to our brand. Because I hadn't heard like that it was going to be a cookie cutter. I had basically just heard that like something as an homage to the past was coming. Now, like, what does that mean even? I don't even know that, right? So you're right, though. Like, what I was alluding to was once they launched on 2/2/22, Nike can keep that in their back pocket, whether it's the burgundy one or the white one or the dark burgundy one that, you know, they even wore for 2 years as the Washington football team. There just wasn't that Native American logo on the shoulder. So, yeah, like, Nike's got them, and they're still pumping them out. That's the funny part, too, at least on the retail side of things. I just don't know if you can customize them. I don't think you can do that, but you can still get some of the throwback players in that old style of jersey.
Mike, what are your thoughts on that? I feel like that's maybe something that I'm cautiously worried about with the whole going back to our jerseys. I feel like, you know, Grant Paulson, I love Grant Paulson, I love Kevin Sheehan. They're definitely asserting that it's going to be a Gibbs 1.0 jersey. Could it potentially not be that? And would that be a feeling? Would that be frustrating to the fan base? Because I feel like an homage to the team, the rebrand, could be anything. I see it as open-ended as what you're alluding to, but I feel like there's a contingent that says it's going to be Gibbs 1.0 no matter what. Am I reading that wrong? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think anyone's reading anything wrong until we see the freaking thing. Like, let's be honest. Let's be honest here.
Okay.
But I also think could it be an homage to like the 70s jerseys though? Like that yellow, jerseys. Like that yellow stripe right that's on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like the yellow stripes are very akin to what they're wearing right now. Right. Mm-hmm. So like, how do we not know they go back a generation to do something a little bit more throwback-ish? So they're not just going back to those Washington football team jerseys. I'm sure they know whatever they're going to make is going to print money regardless. But like, I do not think it is this cut and dry Gibbs 1.0 jersey. I do think that's like a little bit easy. And if that's fine, if they do that, once again, I'm cool with it. But I don't know. I just get the sense this isn't going to be as cut and dry as everybody is saying. I think it's going to be a little bit of both, you know, to kind of bridge the past to the future. And if it ends up being a cookie cutter one, whatever, that's a good decision. I think people are going to buy it. But I also will just add this in too. The levels, I did this on my show maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. The like levels of people with the name in the uniform do vary so much. Like people are all or nothing or everything. And I think it will piss people off if it is just a cookie cutter version. Like,
absolutely.
I don't think you're not getting out of this without pissing someone off. But no, like there are people that are saying that, oh, they can't be called that with that throwback jersey. And that's another thing that I'm sure they're weighing on.
My dark horse prediction, and I'll throw it over to Doug in a second. My dark horse prediction on February 10th, I could be completely wrong. That third helmet's going to be a yellow, the Lombardi style helmet with this W on the front, right? They're going to bring back this jersey, and they're going to have the yellow pants that goes along with it, and it's going to be absolutely fire. I'm going to love that jersey. It's going to be awesome.
It's like a color rush situation, is what you're getting at?
So. Okay. I think so. But white with the yellow pants with the yellow hat, it's going to be dope. I love it.
Got it.
Also, and I don't know if this is true, Mike, you may know. I know that for like, I was just thinking for the people that say it's so easy to do a rebrand if they want to. First, I think it was like $20 million they spent last year just to figure it out for a name that, you know, that at least half the fan base hated. But I know if a player changes their number, they have to buy the catalog back, right, to change their number. Does the team have to do that? Let's say if next year they figured out a way to be Red Wolves just for whatever.
I would assume so. I think last time it was really weird. If you remember, like Redskins got kind of canceled. There's for lack of a better term, right? So they pulled everything, and I don't know what the team did with that. Did they burn it? Did they send it over to a third world country? I don't know what they with like the losing championship gear stuff. I don't know. So yeah, like I don't know what happened with that. I would assume they would be on the hook for this one though. Let me just I'll throw this out there too. Like a lot of people like to point out the rule of someone buys the franchise and there's this like window where you could change it. Let me just tell people this though. There's never been this circumstance where they rebranded literally 3 years ago and are like gung-ho to do it again. I just, it's a different scenario. It takes a lot of manpower. I know a lot of people are like, well, why can't they do both? It's a lot of money, and they are $6 billion in the hole at the moment. More than that, actually, with the stadium upgrades and trying to get lobbyists to RFK. Like, it's a lot of money, and I just think they're not focused on that. I don't think they want to put any energy towards it. And like, I think Harris did a great job of saying the Commanders mean something in the building. And that to me was his very much like, get on board because we care about it. And if you don't, that's kind of on you. When it comes to the rebrand stuff, I don't think they're interested in it. I've also said that, like, if you're going to do this, do you just wait till the new stadium is here? I also see the argument, though, that once you're 5 more years down the line, you're probably not going to change it. I just think they've landed at this point of maybe you don't like the name, but the W's on the side of the helmet. I've always kind of compared it a little bit how the Wizards have gone with their modern branding. They don't really they wear one set of jerseys that says Wizards. Everything else says Washington or District of Columbia on it. And I think maybe they just go that route for the rest of their future where you kind of just skirt around it a little bit. And maybe that's, your workaround for it. As far as buying the merch, they would be on the hook for a lot of Commanders gear. So that's probably a part of this whole conversation too.
Well, not just that, but for the people that want the jerseys changed or whatever, people don't want to hear this, but a lot of people have bought, if nothing else, the Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey, and they'd be on the hook to buy another jersey 1 year after they already did that. And I can see where a lot of people would be, let's just say, not happy about it. Mike, I know you've seen the mock-ups of what the helmet would look like if they put the stripes on it, change the mask back. Where are you with the helmet? I actually, of all the branding they did, I kind of like the helmets really well. Do they need to add stripes and a yellow gold face mask?
I would love to see the gold face mask back. Like, there were a few decisions on this rebrand that I think they like. And when I say they, is that Jason Wright? Is it Ron? Like, I don't know who to blame. And I'm not interested in blaming anyone at this point, but like, there's a couple own goals as I would call it. Like, I would like the yellow face mask to be back. I would like some stripes down the center. Now to George, like what he was saying earlier, do they release a alternate helmet that is the more classic one that just has some stripes on it or whatever? Or maybe you do it with the stripes with the numbers like the Washington football team did. I liked those. To me, it's not this huge deal. I love the flat matte painting that they've got on them, though. 100%. I think there should be like a must on HDTV at this point. Like, I feel like I'm an old head saying that, but like, it just looks so much better on TV. It's the one thing on the battle black jerseys that I can't stand is that that they're glossy. Like, I go back to the consistency thing across these newer uniforms. Like, nothing matches up, and the flat black helmet would be badass. So I got some tweaks there. I'd like to see the gold face mask back, but also if you make it an alternate, I'm okay with that too. And the new look is all burgundy. I'd be all right with it. Like, nitpicking those little things is fun, but it doesn't really mean that much to me in the long run. I'd like to see it, but I won't be broken up if they don't, is what I'm getting at.
Mike, have you seen metrics on jersey sales by any chance? Like, I know like the black jerseys, for all the hate on social media that you see, if you go to any game, everyone I talk to has at least one or two of them. I feel like it's a very common jersey. People love it. It matches with a lot of things here in DC. It might be odd or maybe not the traditional, Redskins perception, but people love it for whatever reason. Do you know anything about the numbers behind it, or do you think it's, or maybe not, but do you have an anecdotal belief? Do you think they're going to potentially change that by any chance?
I don't think there's a chance that gets swapped out because let me tell you, I follow things at the retail level as a fan and as a media member. I don't see a lot of people do it. So I like to dive into it a little bit, and I refresh websites every day that I go to. And let me tell you, I think it was like week 5, maybe it was the week of the Bears or the week after the Bears game. The replica version of that jersey was gone. You could not buy it. You couldn't get it customized. They had some past players, like Gibson or Carson Wentz, like that were laying around. You could not get it. Same thing with the $300 or $300+ authentic version. You could not get it. It was gone. Like, people bought it up. There was a run on them during holiday time. I had people DMing me asking me where to get them. Your solution, by the way, was to go to NFL Shop Europe, and it would arrive sometime in January. Don't ask me why NFL Shop Europe had those jerseys and America didn't, but that's ultimately what you had to do. The fact that they sold out for that long tells me those things aren't going anywhere. People like them. As I said before, I think this team, even before they changed the name, was due for something modern. Like,
I agree, Mike.
Not
I agree
everything. Yeah, like not everything, but like, give me a black jersey. Like, give me the yellow color rush jersey that Dan Snyder never wanted to wear. Like,
exactly. I agree.
Give me one of those to just kind of look modern. So, no, I think people love it. And that black Jaden jersey, as I said, became iconic with the Hail Mary. They played the Titans and he killed them in that jersey. I think you're starting to see that, like, you kind of latch onto it. Look at what's happened here in town, right? Like the Nats went on a run wearing those navy blue jerseys. I hated those jerseys. And then they won the World Series in them, and I love them. They're my favorite jerseys of the franchise. Like, winning solves everything. So I don't think the black jerseys are going anywhere. And in fact, I think they only like just now got back in stock, and it's like the $350 version of it. I think that's back in stock. So yeah, I haven't seen those numbers, George, to answer your question, but I follow it enough that those suckers were sold out for a long time during the season and only like just now are getting back into stock.
My wife wanted the black Terry McLaurin jersey, and to your point, Mike, no go. You couldn't find it anywhere. And so I agree with you. And also important for Josh Harris and company, winning 12 games as the Commanders certainly didn't hurt his, endeavors to keep everything status quo. If this team had won 4 games this year and Jaden Daniels was mid, I don't think they put this to bed quite as easily, right?
No, 100%. As I said, winning solves everything. And I do think there's a little bit of an X factor here that we're not taking into account. Like, I'm a season ticket holder. I have friends that sit around me. I have friends that are wanting to get season tickets. They put their deposit down, and then they were asked to put down more money in the middle of the season. Like, that to me kind of put up like a, not a red flag, but just a flag of like, oh, okay, like this season ticket base is getting built again. I think that first game, whatever it is at home, it's going to answer a lot of our questions of why Commanders probably is sticking around. I'm guessing a lot of people, whether they hate the name or love the name, if they're signing up for season tickets, they do not care what it's named. And that includes the ownership as well. So I think that's a factor here, is that like when it comes to the name and people signing up and like the jerseys being sold, whatever, winning solves so much of this. And to your point of, 12 wins really puts this to bed. It really puts it to bed when you make it to the NFC Championship game. And also you can even make the argument they looked better than the Chiefs did last night against the same team, minus 3 huge mistakes in that game. They went toe-to-toe with the Super Bowl champ, essentially. Like I said, minus a few mistakes. They were big mistakes. I'm not trying to like skirt over it or anything, but we all watched that game and just thought Jaden looked great. If he had more chances, they'd, be in a much better position to have a shot to win that game. So I think that's a factor here is, yes, winning solves everything. And look, how many years, and there's a lot of people that still hate the stadium, but you know what? It's a lot easier to go to that stadium when they're winning, spending your money, all of that fun stuff too. And for the first time since it's opened, essentially, I feel like people just don't care. They're like, just get me there. I want to watch this guy play quarterback, because for the first time, we seemingly have a solid franchise quarterback that has a lot of longevity attached to him.
And they're gonna real quick, George, they're gonna max out on primetime games, right?
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. Like I'm predicting I predicted before the Super Bowl even started yesterday, they were going to be on opening night. Like, they were either going to go to Kansas City if Kansas City won, or they're going up and playing Philly on primetime on that Thursday game. So there's going to have that. We're going to be back on Monday nighters. Look at their schedule too. There's just too many good games that like are going to go to primetime. Detroit comes here. They go to Green Bay. There's a couple of obviously all of the NFC East games. There's going to be a bunch of primetime games because they want to promote Jaden. We saw that during the playoffs, how much the league really was starting to push him fast, almost like overwhelmingly fast. So yeah, they'll definitely max out on those. And guess what? You wear a bunch of jerseys that the kids want during those games. Okay. You're going to sell out on those too.
And what I was going to add was, speaking of the ticket sales, as a season ticket holder myself, there was a relocation event over the past week or so. I don't know if you saw that come up on your opportunity, but so there's a relocation event, and you could buy and potentially move your seat my section was completely sold out. I sit in section 109. I wanted to move up 1 or 2 more rows. The whole section was sold out. And I was looking around the actual stadium. It was like 5, 10 tickets per section. The only things that were available were upper deck for the most part. Things are starting to get really, it's a hot ticket in town now in DC.
No, and like I got my tickets the first year after the pandemic season.
Okay.
I just decided, like, my brother and I just decided we wanted to start going, and like it wasn't even about winning, honestly. It was just about spending a football Sunday at the stadium.
Yeah.
And I'm in row 1 of the upper level. Like I wanted a nice in between of price and seeing the game and not like being too invested in this thing. And we got spoiled. We had, 2 friends join us in that row, 4 friends joined behind, 2 more the row behind. People wanted to get on board, and we did that. We tried to do the relocation thing. Yeah, we're talking barely any seats were available. And I don't know what that means, though, people that were like on the in-between of like what comes available if people did get on that relocation stuff.
Yeah.
But I that was the first thing I did was surf around. And yeah, we're talking 1 seat in some of these sections that were available. And like I said, I think this all goes back to, let's see what this first game looks like. And they really don't care what the name is if the stadium is full, against whoever they play, that first home game.
Mike, we know you've been at it all day today, so we appreciate you giving us some of your time. George, I think we learned a lot about the uniforms today. I was excited about this episode, and it did not disappoint. Mike, we appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Of course, guys. Always appreciate it.
See you.